Hi, I'm Annie Copps. I'm the food editor at Yankee Magazine. And today, we're going to be making a Yankee Pot Roast, a classic recipe from our new bookazine that's out on the shelves now called Best New England Recipes. We went through 75 years of Yankee Magazine, every single issue of the magazine, and pulled out more than 150 fantastic classic recipes. And there's some modern ones in there too. But this is an old school recipe. Everybody's heard of pot roast. Maybe you're afraid to make it because you think, you know, it's too old school. This is delicious. It's inexpensive, and you can do lots of things while it's in the oven. We're going to start with a super hot pan, and this needs to be a pan that can go into your oven and has a lid. About 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and that is a screaming hot pan, and that's what you want because we're going to sear the meat. And people say you sear the meat to seal in the flavor, but that's not true. That's just a myth that got passed down through the ages. What it does is it caramelizes the outside of the meat, and it's going to brown on the bottom of the pan, and that's what's going to help give this a really, really great flavor. So I've seasoned this with salt and pepper. And also, something that I didn't show you, I patted this meat dry. That's also really important with searing. You don't want any moisture on the outside of the meat. So I'm going to flip it over. And on this side, you can see that it is a little bit moist. So just a paper towel. And again, salt on this side as well. This is all going to help with building the flavor. And that's the thing about braising. It's not about, you know, super culinary Olympic techniques. It's about building layers and layers of flavor. Okay, so into this screaming hot pan. Did you hear that sizzle? You got to hear that. We're going to brown it on all 4 sides. And it's going to take about 4 minutes per side. Alrighty, so that took about 15 minutes or so. Look at that beautiful color. And in case I failed to mention it, this is about a 5 or 6 pound chuck roast or top round, not an expensive cut of meat, and it's tied because when we cook it, it's going to shrink down so it doesn't flop all over the place. Okay, so look at this beautiful pan, all that brown good stuff. We want that. We want that. That's the good part. I have celery, onions, carrots, and you can see they're fairly large pieces, and I even put some of the celery leaf in there because I think that really adds a lot of flavor. Classic mirepoix into the pan. And this is all going to get pureed later, so that's why it doesn't have to be super finely minced. Stir that around. And you just want to cook it for a few minutes until they release some of their flavor. And also, about 4 cloves of garlic. And again, these were not chopped up. I just smashed them, took that papery skin off, and into the pan. Oh, it smells so good already. Your house will never smell better than when you're making pot roast. Okay, these guys are really getting to know each other. Smells heavenly. A cup of red wine, maybe a little more. And you want to use a wine, it doesn't have to be terribly expensive, but it has to be a wine that you can drink because any flaws in the wine, once it gets cooked down and reduced, it's going to be accentuated. So a wine that you're happy to drink, and I'm happy to drink just about any wine. With this wine, I'm scraping up all those brown bits from the meat, all that caramelized, that's going to really add even more depth to this sauce. Building, building, building. So that's all scraped up. Smells so good. Back in the pan goes our beautiful beef. And then any of the juices that settled on that plate, pop them in there too. That's flavor. Then beef stock. I use store-bought because I just don't have time to make beef stock, I confess. But use a low sodium one if you can. Okay, put a lid on it. And then into a 325 oven for 3.5 to 4 hours until it just gets really tender and delicious and cooked all the way through. There's no rare pieces of meat on this one. So yeah, catch up on Mad Men, do some yard work, knit a sweater, whatever you like. Alrighty, it's out of the oven. It's very, very hot. I'm going to open it away from me rather than opening it towards me in case there's any steam. Last thing I need is a pot roast facial. Oh, it smells so good. It smells so, so good. Now look how much it shrank and all that liquid reduced. Very dramatic. I can't get over how good this smells. It's really fantastic. Again, it's a hot pot from the pot roast. Oh, yeah, this is done. It is cooked all the way through. Look at that. Beautiful. And all that veg. At this point, it's really hard not to take a bite of that pot roast because it looks and smells so good. I'm going to tent this with foil while we make our sauce. And the reason I'm doing this is there's a nice crust on the outside of this, and we don't want to start steaming it. So I want to keep it warm, but I want air to circulate. So just set that aside. Move our hot pot over a little bit. And then using the outboard motor from my parents' Whaler. No, this is an immersion blender, and you just stick it right in the sauce. It's got a little blade on the bottom of it, and it's just going to, you can do it in a blender, you can do it in a food processor, but this is over and done with. This is the best tool for a kitchen. This and a microplane. These vegetables are super soft at this point. Okay. You can leave this sort of on the lumpy side, or you can make it super pureed, whatever your preference. And now I'm just going to taste it, because the only seasoning that we did was at the very beginning when we seasoned the meat. Oh, that's good. I'm going to add a touch more salt, and we're good to go. Set this aside. Now to serve this, I would just maybe some buttered noodles with some of that nice gravy on there, or some roasted vegetables. These are onions, carrots, and potato. That's it. You are good to go. And one more tip for you. If there's any leftover, if that's at all possible in your household, my cousin Courtney makes little raviolis with them. She takes the meat and chops it up, puts some of the sauce in there, uses wonton wrappers, and she has another meal out of it. So a frugal tip from me, Annie Copps, food editor at Yankee Magazine.